Buddy. Hi.
Good to see
Odd
you.
way to meet.
Hello, Gary. Late
Good to see you,
afternoon.
Lee.
What? Is everyone here? I'm late. I'm sorry.
No, you're just 2 minutes, just 2 minutes past 7. Why don't we give it another 2 minutes or so to see if others might join? They might be having difficulty
Okay.
tuning in.
Okay. Is Rich here?
Rich is here, yes.
Pat just vanished.
Okay. Now let's see if I can get other people. Okay, David's here. Kenny.
Not for long, unless you need me.
Gary. Richard. There's Richard. Hi, David. Hi, Richard. I need you.
At least.
At least Mike Ray has joined us as a member of the public.
Oh, good. Hi, Mike.
Hello there, Lisa. I'm just going to sit in the background.
Well, don't listen too carefully.
Actually, I actually have the smells of dinner wafting into this room, so I may leave at some point.
Yeah.
But I won't. I don't mean to be rude if I do, but.
We have audio, visual, but not olfactory yet.
I know it smells really good out there.
Can
Lee,
anyone hear my dog chewing on a bone?
No.
no.
No, good.
But Lise, can I
Good.
ask,
The audio's not good.
Lise? Lise,
What?
could you,
Yeah.
I'm going to change, you see what you see of me here? Just with the barely in my head, that's what I'm seeing of you. Could you tip your speaker?
Oh, okay.
Is that possible? Oh, much
Hey.
better. There you are. Thank you.
Is that better? I'll move it further away. Then it'll get more of me, maybe.
That's a little better now. There it is.
That's
There.
better.
Is that better?
No.
Okay. You mean I look better?
You-
Why
Well, you're
don't
in
we-
the dark, but you're bigger.
There's more of you.
Well, I don't know if that's good or not.
Why don't we get started at this point?
Okay.
David, do you want to fade away for?
I'm going to,
No
I'm-
fading, David.
I'm going to fade away and go get my own dinner and the families. Have a nice
Okay.
meeting without me.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
for,
bye,
setting
David.
up.
You're welcome. Sorry it took an extra week.
Oh, it's worth it.
Oh,
You went
David,
away and
before
then
you
Susan
go,
appeared. He's gone.
do you know what's happening about that mooring
I'm
ordinance?
still here. What's that?
David, hi, it's Lise. I was wondering if you knew what was happening with the mooring ordinance.
I haven't heard back from any or all of the committee members that were working on it about whether or not they wanted to get together.
Okay. Well, then you're in as bad shape as I am.
I
Okay,
am.
good.
Well, you
And
heard,
I apologize that you'll still see my name on the screen, but it's the only way we can keep the meeting going with me being the host.
oh,
So have a lovely
Got it.
meeting.
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank
Dave.
you.
Thank you, David.
Bye now.
Yeah, so as our first order of business, we can review the minutes from the last meeting that Tony sent out, and I think I sent them out last Tuesday as well. They're the minutes from our February meeting. But before we do that, Tony, do you want us to find a substitute to take notes for this meeting? Are you having trouble tracking this?
Well, fortunately, I have with me at hand.
Uh-huh.
I have no reasonable escape method. So the answer is I'll do it. Okay,
Do it.
we will do it.
Your left-hand woman.
Thank you.
Hey, Whitney.
So February was our last minutes.
Yes, February was our last minutes. I sent them out last Tuesday. I took an opportunity to review them, and I thought they looked very good. I think Tony did a great job on them. They really detailed what we talked about. They identified some action items for us. Some of the things that we identified as action items didn't come to pass, partly because the world shut down between our last meeting and now. But I think it should still be a record of the meeting that we had rather than making any changes that reflect things that have changed since.
Okay, so I'll send those out then to everybody.
Okay, good.
Any comments from anyone on the minutes?
I agree with you. It's what I remember.
Mhm. And when we do cover the issue of Phragmites and the tires, we can go back to them to talk about the action items that were included there to see if we've been able to make progress in some of those in the interim. So why don't we do our lake by lake review? How about Coleman Pond to start with?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked us. We have two loon chicks. One family, two loon chicks. We've never had such an event.
Oh, that's great news. That's great news.
And the eagles and the snapping turtles don't seem to have gotten them.
That's good. Have you
Excellent.
actually seen the chicks?
Yes, this morning, it was really interesting right in front of our dock. The parents were very concerned. They were looking all around. They were sounding as if it was an eagle that was attacking them. One came from one distance, the other came from the other, and I couldn't see any chicks. Turned out they were huddled together right in front of our dock.
Ah,
When the parents appeared, they then moved, and I was wondering if because they were stationary, didn't move, and were right together, that they were trying to be something bigger so that a predator wouldn't come after them.
Huh. Is it usual to have two loon chicks?
No, I've never seen
Twins?
on Coleman Pond. It's quite an amazing event.
Yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
remember about-
congratulations.
Well, proud grandmother.
Right.
So that's the main thing, Gary. It's very quiet. I don't think all the docks are out. I maybe for the 4th of July it'll be more active, but it's a few swimmers, and then, as I mentioned to you, there was one property for sale on Coleman. Now there's another one on Richards Road, which is way down at the other end, and the select board would not care for that one either of them, because they're on private roads.
Right.
Well, the second one is on Richards Road. It's at the very end of Richards Road, right
Yes,
at
worse.
the terminus of Richards Road. The first property is on Patton. Is it Patton Drive or Drive? It's on Patton Road. And that too is inaccessible by emergency vehicles.
Is the Richards Road property anywhere near where the town owns?
Yeah.
It's beyond where the town owns it.
Beyond.
Let's see, I don't know in terms of meters or, a third of a mile beyond where.
Okay, it
town.
doesn't abut it though. It does not abut it.
No,
No, it does not.
and it's
no.
at the end of Richards Road, farther away than the one that the town owns, I guess. And so it'd be worse of a problem to get there.
Gotcha. But does the select board need to hear about it regardless?
Well, we should include it in the minutes.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way of
Okay.
informing them.
We're trying to give you some backup, Gary, that we're doing our job.
Yeah.
Keeping your eyes out.
How
Yes,
how about water levels? Have they gone down with the dry weather before we
Yes.
got this recent rain?
yeah, yes, much lower
Mhm.
than it's been than it was earlier on when we had so much rain.
And did you have signs of the alewives coming back?
Oh, yes, that's the other big thing. Yes, we saw the alewives coming through the culvert and up Andrews Brook, and we see them jumping around here all the time.
So you see the larger sized ones, the ones that came back, are still jumping around.
You think, well, I don't know if they're the ones that spawned or if they're the larger ones jumping around.
You know, I think that usually the larger ones, after they lay their eggs, usually leave right away unless they can't. And I was just wondering if the low water levels kept them from exiting.
Oh, interesting. I don't know. We should check on that.
I don't know, but what I see looks like larger fish. Looks like alewife, adult alewife length,
Yeah.
6 inches or so.
Yeah, I think the young would just be, you know, an inch or two at the most.
Hmm.
So that's probably the case. It'd be interesting to see. Maybe they'll exit the pond with this rain now if the level comes up enough to flow over the dam.
Yeah, we'll check on that.
Great. So we move on to Pitcher Pond.
Sure. Do you want to go, Pat, or you want me to go?
You start, Rich, and I'll just chime in.
Yeah, the water level was significantly low, a few feet low until, yeah, this rain. The dam and assessing that remains, you know, our board's highest priority. And it was supposed to be an assessment in the spring, but again, with the virus situation, they did not come down to do that assessment. So we're still working on that. We have a board meeting this week, and we'll be reviewing steps toward that. We have one person who's been in touch with the state on this. We had initial assessment in the fall, just kind of an eyeballing of it, not a formal assessment. And they said it was intact enough to not be a safety concern. But in terms of minor repairs, we want to get on that. That's a priority for us. I think I've seen about 4 loons, different loons. Haven't seen chicks. Have you, Pat? Have you seen any?
I haven't seen any chicks, just the adults, the 3 adult males that I call the Norwegian bachelor farmer loons.
And of
They
course,
just hang out and they make noise, but I haven't seen pairs and certainly not a chick.
yeah, and a number of eagles, which, you know, keeps us concerned about
Yeah,
survival for chicks.
yeah.
Is there much activity in the lake with docks and boats and that?
Well, the docks going in, it's been slow from what I've noticed. Been a number of kayakers, a few motorboats, but no, even on weekends when I've been over, it hasn't been that busy. You know, maybe see a couple motorboats, same ones up and down a few times, but not really busy. I don't know. What's your experience, Pat? You're
Yeah,
there.
it's been pretty quiet. I haven't been out, but I have some friends that have come and taken out some of our kayaks. And they were amazed. They did the whole length of the pond and never saw another boat or another person. We've had a couple of the summer people who've come up from out of state, lasted about 3 days and decided that the caterpillars win and left. Closed their camps back up and left. So the road is really quiet. There's people at the far end and there's me and not anything in the middle.
Have you looked back?
So
Pat?
if COVID can't chase people away, the caterpillars can.
Have you gotten out on the water and looked back at your end of the lake and seen the
I
dam?
can't, I'm not going anywhere near where my boats are. It's just like the ground zero for the caterpillar stuff
Yeah.
right now. So I haven't been on the water at all. I might go down this weekend to the end of the road and go out with a friend on a motorboat, but
Yeah,
it-
I'm just saying from my camp looking toward your direction, you know, to Rocky Road, the oaks up behind you and across 52 there have been devastated. So
Yeah.
yes, it's very much a catastrophe with
yeah, the 3 that are over my house, which is why I ran away to Hancock, to where my spouse lives, are pretty bad. And then all down the other side of the road between Rocky Point Road and North Cobbtown that the Ararat Farms person owns and had logged last summer, those trees are just absolutely bare. There's nothing on them. And so it's pretty nasty in this particular little pocket.
yes.
Yeah.
It's really noticeable.
So that, you know, if the word gets around that it's going to stay unhealthy this summer, that might also cut down on the amount of people coming. I mean, if I'm not willing to be here, I can't imagine driving up from Boston to encounter the things all over my house.
Tony and Whitney, what is the defoliation like on Coleman Pond?
Well, go ahead, Tony.
Spotty. We've had quite a lot of work done on our trees and the trees immediately around our house. So they are relatively an island of green. At the head of our road, at the head of Braun Road, on Slab City Road, there is pretty severe impact, bare limbs. It looks a little bit like maybe the leaves are coming back, a second round of leaves now. Our neighbor to the east, Jeff Braun, has been just hammered by them.
Yeah.
It's spotty.
And also we had arborists, 4 days, 4 arborists clipping our trees.
We had a double round of fighting back. We
Yeah.
had 4 guys in a bucket truck for 3 days. And
You must have done a lot of trees.
We do.
We do. We're in an oak forest.
Yeah.
And we have
Ah.
I'd say, what would you do? A significant tree house that is held up by 2 pretty good sized oaks, and keeping them alive and healthy is a priority. But we have, I mean, there's an infinite number of trees around us, and they're all oaks. And then the snipping in the spring did some good. And then one day, maybe 5 weeks ago, it just rained caterpillars. I mean, you could, if I put my hand out, I could have 3 or 4 land on the palm of my hand in a minute. And virtually every shrub, plant, tree, car tire was just covered by them. And it was very off-putting. So we called up the same tree company and had them do what we were had been reluctant to do, inject at the base of every tree.
Oh my gosh.
Almost 50 trees.
The poison.
The poison.
Yeah.
And that's had an absolutely marvelous effect. I don't know who makes the chemical, but you know, you didn't hear me say it, but if it's Monsanto, they saved our day. I don't know what it is. It's a chemical that we're told has a short life and has a tremendous effect on all the insects and the insect life in those trees. And
Yeah, because everything that lands on it dies.
Yes, if it falls into the water, it doesn't impact the water, which,
Well, thank God.
yes. The spraying, which we have some friends who sprayed their trees near water, I think on McGonagall and elsewhere, and I'm not so sure that's a good idea. Or maybe that's a worse idea than injecting. I'm not sure in terms of environmental impact.
Probably is, yeah.
I mean, there's nothing but oak trees all around our house, and some of them are large, and many of them are medium-sized, and a lot of them were impacted last year and the year before. And what we're trying to do is to save the ones that are most important,
Right.
the biggest.
Right. Understood.
So
What I understand is,
we did what we did reluctantly, and it appears to be working, at least in those terms.
what I understand is the oak trees can survive it as long as it doesn't go much over 4 years of defoliation.
Yeah.
That's what we hear.
I heard 3.
3?
Yeah, I imagine that there are other stressors. I mean, if the tree is healthy to begin with, it might be better. If it's a drought, as there was until a couple of days ago, I think that's a stressor.
Yeah.
If it's shallow rooted and the soil chemistry isn't very supportive, that's a stressor. I think it's probably quite difficult to
know.
predict whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years.
Okay.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Whitney. On Pitcher Pond, what about alewives? Do you know if they returned, Rich or Pat?
I don't know. I haven't heard from anyone about that. I'll probably
Yeah,
find
I
out.
went down and watched, but I couldn't, if there were fish going up the ladder, I couldn't tell.
Yeah,
I watched at different times and when the water was still high.
Mhm.
And there were people that lived down on Cobtown Road who were out fishing and who said that they saw them coming up over the dam. There were these little kids and they said, there's these little shiny fish and they just jump, but we can't catch them. So that's anecdotal
Yeah.
from a 5-year-old.
Yeah, I stopped by the fish ladder and I didn't see any live fish moving, but there were, a dozen or so of them that had gotten out of the fish ladder structure and were on the rocks. So at least some made it up.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Norton and McGuntacook, Steve.
Okay, as far as Norton goes, very busy. Swimmers, boaters, kayaks, you name it, we got it. As far as the brown-tailed moths, a lot of people have been spraying with the soap method and even putting a bucket of Dawn under the trees. And that seemed to be helping and taking them out. And I thought it was interesting. I never heard of that before, about taking a bucket of Dawn soap and putting it at the base of the tree and it's collecting the brown-tailed moths. Like
You mean
crazy.
they all fall into the bucket or they climb into the bucket? They like
they
it.
They just like it, I guess, for some reason. And
Oh, nice. Good idea.
I never heard of it, but they said, hey, if it works, try it. And
Yeah. Better than the poison.
we
Do
have a
they
lot of
have to
people-
have lights in the bucket?
Didn't say so.
Okay.
A lot of people did the cutting and trimming and snipping earlier this year on Norton's Pond Road, so it took care of quite a few. Floats are in, almost all floats are in now. Most of our summer residents are back again. We've got probably 8 or 10 that aren't coming, just because of where they are. I guess it's so serious they don't want their dad to leave or they don't dare to come up to the area. Fishing has been good. Still got a lot of crappies, which we'd like to get rid of. We got a loon on a nest, which you saw, Gary, I think when you were out kayaking. And there were 2 out originally, and now there's just 1, so I'm assuming she's staying on the nest as long as possible. Uh, We'll be doing the count on the floats coming up shortly. We'll be doing the loon count coming up the middle of the month. Other than that, it's a good year, except for the water is extremely low, probably down 2 feet right now.
Boy, that's significant.
It is.
I wonder what you might be seeing with the buckets with the soapy water in it might be similar to what Tony was talking about, which is if he put his hand out for 5 minutes, you get 3 or 4 of the caterpillars in them just coming down from the trees. So I wonder if they're just coming straight down and you're just catching the cross section of those that are descending, or whether they're actually attracted to the soapy water.
I don't know. I know my wife's been spraying the side of the house over here in Union and taking them out that way.
With spraying them with what? Soap?
Dawn's a mixture of Dawn and soap, water, just a solution, just a spray can.
Yeah, I spray them with a mix of Dr. Bonner's peppermint oil soap and water. And it does 2 things. So it melts them, which is really satisfying to watch. You feel like the Wicked Witch thing. It's murderous and gross because I hate them so. And the oil in the peppermint oil soap coats the hairs. I'm not even calling them hairs anymore. They're needles. That's what they are. And it coats them. And so that when they are on the ground, they're not as toxic. And your yard smells good. You know, you and the yard and everything else smells like a candy cane. And I've got a super soaker with it. It's peppermint oil soap, Dr. Bonner's peppermint oil soap. And I assume that any soap, works and will kill them, but to be able to melt them and to coat the hairs and make them oily, I think is good.
Susan, how about Cook?
McGuntacook. Well, I've been following the oil soap method. I was gathering the caterpillars. We had only a few last year, and this year we had quite a few. So we were going regularly, maybe once a week, and I was gathering up the caterpillars, and then I started spraying them. So now there's no longer caterpillars there. On the water, there's kayakers, there's boats. There are new boats that are evidently designed to create as much wake as possible, so that the children that they tow on the tubes can bounce over the wake. We are situated on a point, so they come around the point, and our dock we have fitted with plastic barrels to float. And the dock rocked so much that we had to twice chase the plastic barrels around the lake. And we found them in the spot. So we've done a lot of work. We've anchored the dock. We've gotten new barrels. We've got new bunches. We're hoping to keep all the barrels under the dock this year. Our neighbor has unencapsulated foam, and he reports that it is inhabited by a muskrat family. He seems to think that the unencapsulated foam is outlawed, and I haven't disabused him of that notion. So
that unencapsulated foam is what?
It's the foam that doesn't have any plastic.
No, I know what it is. But yes, but your neighbor feels that it's what?
Oh, he seems to think that it's outlawed. Because Camden has outlawed it, and seems to think that they're under the same ordinances. Although evidently Lincolnville were taking the educational approach.
Right.
I haven't told him any different.
That's good.
We have had a nesting loon, and then the Papa standing guard not far away for a long time, but we haven't seen any chicks. And now I don't see either one of them, so I don't know what's become of them. The McGonagall Watershed Association does all the testing and water monitoring. I volunteered to help with that on a weekly basis, but now I'm waiting for an online training program to be available. So what else? Water level seems, normal, I guess. It's not dramatically low, high or low. So that's it.
Thanks, Susan. And Cheryl, how about going up the feeder stream of Norton?
Yeah, no, because of those caterpillars, we don't go anywhere in the woods.
Yeah.
No, it's impossible to know what it looks like. I'm guessing there's hardly any stream until now, like probably today it's back, but for the most part, this time of year, if it's that dry, there's not much where we are that looks like a stream.
I paddled up the stream about as far as where you first get the large rocks in the stream itself. And I really couldn't go much further up the stream from that point.
Was it not enough water or the trees? Because I know there were trees.
Mostly trees. There were a lot of trees that came down across the channels. There were the two narrow channels around that little island. And
Right. They've been there for a long time. My husband and I were going to take them out. So that little island is right at the end of our property.
Okay.
And we were going to take them out one year and we just never got to it. It was like an astronomical task. We had our kayaks down there and we used to have to slither under all the trees in order to get out. But we haven't been down there, like I said, probably 2 years now.
And as Steve mentioned, I did see a nesting loon in the cattails in the section that is above where the culvert is, and where it narrows down, where there are a lot of geese there too. It looks like the geese had a very successful year this year.
Yeah, there were a lot of little baby geese on the Wentworth Road side of the culvert as well. We could see them, earlier in the spring. So there were quite a few.
I wrote a note to Paul Leeper today, the head of the Watershed Association, and I copied you on it, Steve, as well, asking him whether or not the E. coli sampling had begun yet. So that would be part of the same program that you'd be getting the training for, Susan. Because one of the projects of our committee is to see whether or not on days when they have elevated levels at Breezemere or just below the culvert, whether or not it might be originating from different points on that feeder stream. So I asked him if he was going to be doing it this week, and if he did it, and if he did find elevated levels, and when he does find elevated levels, they go back the next day to confirm so that they can either open it or close it for the following weekend. But if they were to find elevated levels this week, with the extra rain that we've been getting, that might be when you'd see more bacteria coming into the water. So I'm waiting to hear back from him to see whether it's going to happen this week, and if it does, whether or not they find elevated levels.
They should have been testing because they're supposed to start on the week after week of Memorial Day.
Yeah, I went to the website, Steve, and I didn't see anything there, but they did last year start around June 11th or something, or that first week of June. And I just wondered if because of the virus or some other reason they just hadn't started it yet. But we'll see how Paul responds.
Don't hear from him, let me know. I'll get a hold of him and shake him up.
Okay, sounds good.
Gary, that's a good reminder to me. I don't know if any water testing has been happening on Colton, and I will write our monitors and see.
what's
Mhm.
up.
Yeah. On the issue of the wave runners, the boats that create the high wave, Steve, that was an issue on Norton Pond the year before last, wasn't it? And not
Yeah,
so
we had
bad
two.
last year?
Yeah, two big boats that were doing it constantly, and it was getting to be quite vicious. One gentleman has already taken his boat out of the water and hasn't brought it back. And I'm not sure about the second one, if he's gonna come back again this year or not.
Do you know if Dale talked to them at the time in terms of where they would operate?
Well, they operated not too far off our place, and it was right the last 3/4 of Norton's. From, say, when you come into Norton's down to, do you know where the lighthouse is at the Billings Point?
Right.
That's where they would turn around and run back, and they were going back and forth right there.
Hmm.
They got a lot of complaints.
Yeah, I think especially troubling for the loon nest. If there are loon nests in the vicinity, and I don't know if there are loon nests in the vicinity of where it's operating on the McGuntacook, Susan, but if.
Very close.
Yeah, so that might be worth talking to Paul or Dale about. And maybe if people understand what the impacts are, they might operate in an area that wouldn't impact the shoreline as much and impact the loon nests.
Yeah.
I can talk with Dale because he's right across the way from me, and I see him quite a bit.
Okay.
Good.
We were thinking of putting buoys out at 300 feet and toggle lines between them. Didn't know if that would mark the area a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Be a 300-foot setback from the shore for boats, isn't it?
Is it 200 feet or 300 feet?
200.
I think it's 200 feet.
I think it's
200.
Yeah.
Oh, 200?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Oh,
that
okay.
that would help. That would
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
But most people, after we put the markers on at 200 feet, just looked at it. Say, oh, that looks nice. What's that mean? Then I had one guy come more on it and went fishing.
And I have to say, the rec commission had asked to put extra buoys out beyond the swim platform there because the boats continue to cross between the,
Right.
the swim area and where the people are swimming, even though it's obvious they're swimming there. They've had
Right.
boats go through there last year. I don't know about this year, but we had a lot of people asking about, couldn't we put some buoys out there to keep them away that said, no boats. But the town did not want to do that.
I thought Dale did that last year.
There are some buoys out there, but I don't know that this was like additional buoys. There is one. I think there's one, but we were looking for, 2 or more. So people wouldn't, they just look at it and think, well, I can go over there or over there. So if there was 3 of them, they wouldn't go through maybe. I don't know.
Is the sailing school opening this year?
I think it was a maybe. Last I heard that they were trying to put together some kind of programs, nothing like usual, but they put their dock out. So I think they're going to try to put something together.
Yeah, most of the similar programs in the state, they're doing a really reduced program and they're not having more than one person in each boat. So you wouldn't have the instructor or another kid in the boat with you. But so like 5 kids instead of 15 or 20. And it'll be interesting to see if Lincolnville decides to go that route.
Yeah.
Moving on to Moody Pond, please.
Moody.
There was quite a lot of activity on the pond earlier in the spring because people were fishing a whole lot. And so that was really nice. And there's still some activity, people swimming, but not a whole heck of a lot. The oak trees certainly down at the end of our field, I mean, I would say there are about 10 oak trees that were totally bare. But I looked out today and saw that there was hints of green. So I'm planning to go down there at some point and take a better look, because I haven't been down at the pond a lot. But I think they're starting to go into their second season, as it were. As far as the oaks, the water level is pretty high. I think beavers have been at work, but hopefully they've moved on or will move on. The water's still flowing out of Mariners Brook in quite a substantial way. And so I'm hoping, I mean, this has happened before, and I hope that, you know, they move on and that the water level, which I'd say now is probably about maybe a foot higher, but I'm not sure because I'm never here at this time of year, usually. So I don't know.
Right.
So I can't really quite tell. And what else? And loons, 2 loons. I haven't seen any babies, but I haven't been down a lot. I mean, I went swimming a couple of times, and but I haven't. But certainly they're very noisy, and they're definitely there, and hopefully they're babies. But other people have seen loon babies swimming around at this season, or are they still in the nest?
Coleman,
Swimming around.
in Coleman.
Yeah. But
Okay.
at Moody Pond last year, the loon chick didn't show up until late July.
I know, I remember. Yeah, you
It's
said.
very late. Yeah.
So they're late breeding chicks here. I mean, late breeding loons in Moody Pond.
Either that or
Assuming they're the same group that was here last year. And we have our, you know, the yellow float is back, and
so
I guess that's about it.
Okay, and we can move on to an update on the mooring committee's work after we go through the ponds.
Okay.
For Levenseller Pond, the water level is lower than usual for this time of year, but that may have been corrected with the rain of the last couple of days. And with the hot weather that we've been having, the swimming areas have been very popular. You know, we can, we live, oh, I don't know, over a quarter of a mile away from the pond, and you can hear families and kids having a lot of fun just swimming in the water at those parking lots. But it does get a lot of use. And I think also through the pandemic, there've been a lot of families out during the day too. You know, you'll see a mother and a father and a couple young kids, and some of them will be fishing. It's just kind of a place to hang out. So it's been a good place for people to be. Pat, you wanted to share some news related to polyencapsulated or replacing unencapsulated floats. You were talking about that email that was sent in the project that somebody undertook. Just to share with the other ponds. Does that ring a bell?
I don't have access to it right now. That email that I sent to you, which was from someone on the pond who had done it.
Yeah, as I recall,
so when I get,
go ahead.
Yeah, it was. So they'd sent the information, and I sent it to you, and then I hadn't done anything farther with that about who they hired and what it cost, and that it was easy. And
yeah, so this was somebody who retrofitted a dock, and they bought encapsulated float material, and they worked with somebody else on the lake to fashion it, and I think they did the job for just several $100s, and they were offering assistance to other
people on the
owners on the pond to learn what they did. So there might be some information there if on some of the other lakes you get
Mhm.
requests from people who want to change out or,
Good idea.
yeah, not put in a whole new one, but
Yeah. Rich,
retrofit.
was this something that was on the bulletin board and then I sent it to Gary? Did you see it, Rich?
Yeah, I saw the email. I was impressed that someone cared enough
Yeah.
to do that and listened to the, you know, the push that we've been making at our meetings and with the newsletter
Yeah,
about.
it was like a commercial for us. It was great.
Yeah, it was nice to see.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it and send it out to everyone.
Sure.
Coleman Pond in their newsletter mentioned that if anybody wanted assistance to change their unencapsulated, that dock to an encapsulated one, that we had somebody on the pond who was willing to help. And also, if it was a matter of finances, we had people who were willing to help. And we put down our telephone number and no one has called.
Mhm.
So that's interesting.
Okay.
Well, on the newsletter, in our newsletter from Pitcher Pond, I kind of shamed people a little bit, and I was hoping it worked because, you know, our numbers looked really good the first year, but we really didn't improve them the second. And I really made a point that people needed to think about making more of an effort. So I was glad to see that, you know, some people are getting that out. Like, I've done this, I'm willing to help others. So, you know, education again, I think is important.
Yeah, I thought it was a really positive email, and it looked like it was shared with everybody on both sides of the lake, North Fork and Lincolnville.
Yeah.
I guess we need to make sure that we move forward with doing the survey again this year. And I think we've
And
usually done-
talking to people.
Yeah, talking to people too, and doing the survey.
Yeah.
Speaking of talking with people, are the Lake Association meetings going to go forward this year?
Thank you for asking that, Gary, because I was going to ask. I haven't made a decision about Coleman. I was going to wanted to hear what the other ponds had to say. I think I'm a little hesitant because, well, Pat, you and Gary have been in my studio. It's small. And
I'm not coming.
What?
You have the meeting, I'm not coming. So yeah, it's small. And Pitcher Pond, I think, is just going to go with Zoom.
Probably.
We're having a board meeting Thursday night to talk about it, but I don't, the place that we would meet is the community building, which is closed. And we haven't chosen an alternative venue, and I think it's going to just be a Zoom thing. It's kind of ironic because we're pond people. We could theoretically be outside, like on the pond and in our kayaks or canoes or something, but I don't think gathering anywhere inside makes any sense
I
to
agree. With
any of the associations.
How about Lake McGuntacook? Do you know what plans are?
Lake McGunnicook has already decided they're gonna go on Zoom.
We're gonna do it on Zoom, okay. I saw the note came out today saying they're planning to have their 4th of July boat parade on Norton Pond. That
We look forward to that.
Yeah.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it sounds like that's appropriate. It's outside,
Yeah.
and people are distant, but it's a good way to get people together. You know, maybe that could be a substitute for the other ponds. So rather than a meeting, maybe it's more of a you know, non-mandatory social opportunity.
Well, maybe they need both.
Yeah, like you're saying, a Zoom meeting and
And
an
parade or
excursion on the
something.
pond. Yeah.
yeah, both.
Well,
Picture-
and
picture-
depending on what business needs to really happen at the pond association meeting, because usually like for Coleman and Pitcher, we have a presenter, we have,
Yeah,
some kind of
right.
program. And if we're not doing that and we're not eating, and gathering that way, then just meeting on the water and whatever floats literally makes just as much sense in having, the business decisions done some other way with Zoom or something. And we have to elect officers, we have to approve
Right, right.
budgets.
And also
things-
encourage everybody to do something about their polystyrene.
Yes.
I mean, a Zoom meeting is a good time to tackle that issue.
Well, when everybody else on your pond is coming door to door, dock to dock to look at what's floating your float, I don't know.
But we've had full moon paddling on Pitcher Pond the last couple of years as a way to kind of do the social piece.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, we need a business meeting and it's likely to be on Zoom.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. That's good. Good we've got this as an option and people are starting to get more and more familiar with it.
Yeah, I think what Pat said about the meeting on the pond, I mean, we're going to have Corlin Sen talk about what she sees on her cameras on Coleman. And that would be disappointing. I don't know if she could do a Zoom presentation. I'll ask her.
Yeah, she's working on trying to get PowerPoint presentation that she can show on Zoom that's different photographs from the pond, from the different places, and then to talk about it.
Okay.
Wasn't she going to present that at the Lincolnville Improvement Association?
Yes, LIA.
Yeah, it was going to be the same presentation. So she has the photographs and the videos. It's just we have to find someone that can help her turn it into a presentation that can be incorporated into a Zoom event, which is easier said than done.
Well, maybe just still photographs that could
Yeah.
go around. Doesn't have to be active, just some of her stills that she has.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to contact her as soon as I contact our officers and see what everybody thinks. What we said, no, our treasurer felt that we should not charge people $25 dues for this year because of COVID-19. So we haven't done that, which saves me from depositing checks and so forth. So it's good. Saves a little work. But this is all very interesting. Thank you. Probably won't have it and suggest that people socialize on docks and that perhaps Corlin could have some photographs that we can email around.
Mhm. Tony, you sent an email to me today about Article 12 that's on the ballot for the town related to alewives.
Yes.
Yes.
Saying that you'd like to bring that up at this meeting.
Well, it's on the ballot, as most of us know, I guess, and I don't have the language in front of it, but it's an option for the town not to open the alewife fishery in 2020. I think that Lincolnville as a town is licensed to harvest alewives from the duck trap, as that's a historic license. And as far as I know, Lincolnville has not exercised that prerogative in many.
Is that the people of Lincolnville or the town of Lincolnville?
That's the town Well, you ask a good question. It's my belief that it's the town of Lincolnville is permitted to sell or award licenses to individuals to harvest alewives
Okay,
and herring from
got
the
it.
craft. And they have declined to do so for a number of years. And Article 12, as I understand it, renews that
Prohibition.
decision. And the larger picture is that alewives and blueback herring were historically in colonial days and subsequently were harvested in great abundance, and little by little the fishery faded. It just doesn't exist anymore, except for 2 or 3 places on the East Coast. I think there may be a place in North Carolina or South Carolina, and a handful of other streams and rivers in New England, including the Damariscotta, St. George, and St. Croix. I think those are the 3 that are active. There may be some others. All the others that have the option of doing it have chosen not to.
Mhm.
This is I read this article this morning, and
It's very confusing.
It's not all that well written, and so I just sort of pulled what I know out of my own memory. So
I spoke to Dave Kinney about it, and the reason that I did is that Linda Clancy, who's a reporter for the Penn Bay Pilot, gave him a call and had a question about that article on the warrant, because she was reporting on the town meeting and what was going in place of the town meeting. And the only thing that she wanted to know about was Article 12, which was this one. So Dave gave me a call and asked if I or someone else on the committee might want to speak to Linda Clancy about it. Dave said that this article has been part of the warrant since before his time, but it was modified during his time based on a speaker that came to talk to the Lake and Ponds Committee sometime around 2010. And I think it was a speaker from the state who talked about the benefits of restoring the fishery, but not harvesting the fish so the fish could provide cover to migrating salmon. Because if you've got salmon that are coming back and forth in the duck trap, if they can go under the cover of thousands of alewives, they're less likely to be picked off by a cormorant or an eagle or a great blue heron or something like that. And it sounds like what the town needs to do is to petition to the state to have authority to administer the fishery. And that's what the article does. But further, it gives notice to the state that if they're given that authority, they plan to close the fishery so that it can just be a natural migration of the alewives. And Dave has said that it has passed every year at the town meeting. They inform the state, and it makes it easy for him when he gets calls from fishermen or others who want to establish a fishery to harvest the alewives to say, well, the voters have already decided and it's closed. But there may be more pressure on that now since the herring stocks have collapsed and offshore. So there isn't enough bait for fishermen to use. And as the alewife populations start to come up on some of the rivers and tributary, they're more valuable as lobster bait. So I think that's where we are. It probably makes good sense for the system for that to be natural, but there may be some pressure to control it in some way and maybe decide that some portion of the alewives could be harvested.
So
Well,
Gary,
we had a friend who obtained a master's degree from the University of Maine on the alewives and blueback herring. And when, as part of the completion of that, we went to a couple of lectures, and I think once or twice I counted alewives on the Cederbeck. And in that period of time, which was probably 10 years ago, we familiarized ourselves somewhat with the background. And my recollection is that the East Coast fishery of alewives has just been hammered over the decades. And yes, there are some people who want to take advantage of it now, either as lobster bait or because the alewives compete with bass, which is a sport fishing species. But it feels an awful lot like it's maybe an exaggeration, but it's like trying to shoot the last passenger pigeon. I mean, they're so few compared to what there were 50 or 100 years ago, that harvesting just because they're beginning to come back seems premature to me.
Mhm.
So I'm all for leaving things as natural as possible. In the 3 or 5 years or so that we've had herring here, the population of eagles, the population of cormorants, loons, of large and smallmouth bass have all
otters too,
what?
otters.
And otters have all increased. So from my perspective as a pond resident, I think we have everything to gain and nothing to lose. But I'm not a lobster fisherman, and I'm not looking for bait. But that's my 2 cents worth.
And Gary, I think this Article 12 is so confusing. They say one thing in the first 2 sentences about keeping it open, and then they say they want to close it. So I don't know. I agree with Tony. That's my perspective. I don't know if I should vote yes or no.
Yeah, I think you should vote yes for it, because the first part asks to give the town authority to manage it.
Oh, okay.
And then the second part says, and if we manage it, we're going to close it.
Okay.
So I think it's a positive thing for the
Thank you for interpreting this confusing article.
Yeah, it's basically yes, close it.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
All right, I'm
Okay.
marking
Well,
it in.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And to do it officially through the state. Some of the numbers for the returns of alewives in the Kennebec River system and the Penobscot River system have just really skyrocketed in the last 5 years, which is really a good sign. There are just millions of them starting to come back in those big river systems, but I think there's still a long ways to go to get it to where it was when it was at its peak. And I think for our lakes and ponds, it's really good to have the alewives there, because when the young start growing up and then go back at the end of the summer or the fall, they take a lot of nutrients with them. So it's a way of removing phosphorus and other nutrients from the lakes to help keep them clean.
I think you could probably take a number of tons out of the Penobscot or the Kennebec, and it wouldn't impact the growing population. But if you take a few ton of alewives out of the duck trap, it would be a turnaround.
Make a difference.
Make a difference.
The other thing, Gary, that from being down on the fisherman's dock in Lincolnville, the number of lobster fishermen has reduced tremendously. And they do have bait. I don't know what they're using. They used to have the ends of salmon from duck trap. But it's the bait boxes. Have you been down there? There are so many fewer than there used to be.
Yeah, I took an early morning kayak trip out in Tennant's Harbor, Camden, and Rockport. And for the, 2 or 3 hours that I was out, there were no other boats at all. And these would have been really, really busy harbors with tens of lobster boats. And when you drive around, you see all the lobster traps, sitting in people's yards. They're, for the most part, they're just not going out except for a few fishermen that are trying to catch things to supply the local market.
Yeah, no restaurants and selling out of their backyards.
Yeah.
And there are much fewer lobster pots when you're out on the water.
Mm-hmm.
That we've noticed.
Yeah, far fewer between Lincolnville and Islesboro. There's 25% of what there used to be a year ago.
Are we talking this year or
This
years past?
No, this
year. Okay.
Yeah, this spring.
So it's COVID.
Yes.
Well, it's COVID maybe, but it's.
Well, it coincides with COVID.
But I think it has to do with the lobster fishery. There aren't as many lobsters, for one.
And there's the China market.
China's no longer buying the way they used to. So that's, the market for lobsters, I think, has gone way down. A, because restaurants have been closed. B, because the tariff is so big to go to China. And I think China was a major market for lobster.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. It's really a collapse of the market more than a lack of lobsters. Although people are saying that the peak lobster areas along the Maine coast are moving north.
That's right.
5 years ago, it was pretty close to this area and moved up to Stonington, and now it's starting to move north from there.
Yeah.
As the temperatures go up. So I think the days of abundant lobsters in this area and further south, well, that's changing, but I don't think they've seen that much of a change yet in landings.
No.
So let's, before we run out of time, talk about our two projects that we put aside because of our inability to meet. One of them is the Phragmites project and the removal of Phragmites. And if you look at the minutes from the last meeting, we all had some, or some of us had some homework assignments.
February.
And the plan was to start in May and then every month for 3 or 4 months, do the Phragmites removal. We've missed May, we've missed June at this point, but it still might be worth trying to do, 1 or 2 months and maybe have a pilot project to see what works and what doesn't work. I think if we were to do it, we'd have to make sure that we did it in a way that was compliant with all of the COVID requirements. So I'm not sure that our ideas of having large groups of volunteers comes out and makes sense, but maybe there is a way that we could pilot some things and have some more control over it. I spoke to Dave Kinney about it. He thinks that the select board would probably be open to see something moving ahead. And he said what we'd want to do is brief them and get their okay. So I just wondered what everybody's thoughts were on approaching the select board, saying we think that this is a significant project ecologically and from the standpoint of property values for Norton Pond and enjoyment of Breezemere Park. The sooner we do it, the better, because there's real risk if it does spread to the shallow areas of Norton Pond, and that we want to at least do a pilot project this year, working with the state and others, exploring whether or not we need permits. And I know Cheryl's done some work on that issue. I know that Lisa's done some work on methodologies to use and timing. But maybe the thing to do would be to say that we want to put together some kind of a pilot that would either cover a portion of the area or something larger, but do it in a way that follows state guidelines and would inform us for doing it in a more significant way next year. So,
Gary?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The according to my research, it said that the best time to cut is the end of July.
Okay.
That they should be cut down to the lowest leaf, leaving about a 6-inch or a shorter stump, which is something we all could do as a little bit of a pilot project at some point during July.
Mm-hmm.
But I went down and looked at the area below the honor roll of the veterans, and that there were tires there and all the rest of it. So I was a little concerned about the safety factor at what else was down there, because it was certainly the dump for Euclid's garage. And but however, the whole area seems to drain into Norton Pond, so there doesn't seem to be a problem with the water quality in Norton Pond. So perhaps it's not. But I was wondering if there were any official opinion, and I think we should really go into that just a little bit with Dave, if you haven't already.
Yes, I brought up the issue of the tires too. His thought was that, yes, it's really time to deal with that. We'd have to contact the DEP, since it is a formerly contaminated site, and to do any work there, we would need to consult with them. And so that's the second project.
But even to cut the Phragmites, even if you just cut Phragmites, would that disturb it?
Yeah, I guess that would be a question that we would need to ask the state. And,
I think we would.
Yeah,
I think we
and
would.
David said that he didn't see that as a problem, that they're usually pretty responsive when the town makes requests like that. So that could be part of our proposal to the select board too, to have a component of this that would work with the state, make sure that we can do it in the contaminated area, and also find out whether or not we need to have some kind of a permit. Cheryl sent some materials along with the permitting schedules, and it's hard to interpret.
Yeah, that wasn't really, I was trying to do that in a hurry just because I was unprepared. But I looked all over everything. There is only a 1-page permit that we need to fill out. It's $250. They don't say how long it's going to take to get that back as a permit, but that's something that needs to be done according to the woman at the, her name escapes me now, but that I had been going back and forth with about the Phragmites. She said that it requires a permit by rule is what it's called. Mm-hmm. And again, it's a single page, looks pretty easy to fill out. And it's a $250 fee. I did speak with someone in Augusta who confirmed that. So it's a question of getting that filed. I think with that, they might check to see if there are any other issues with the area. And I kind of remember David saying something about, because the mitigation of all that pollution or whatever from the garage was so long ago, it's now at a very low level and they just monitor it. Is that something that you said?
Yeah.
Depends what they used.
Yes, and I think there are monitoring wells there, so the state would want to make sure that if we're pulling the tires out or that kind of thing, that we didn't end up.
I don't think we should be pulling tires out at this point. Maybe we should just confine ourselves to cutting the Phragmites. But even messing around in that area, are we putting ourselves at risk?
That's what concerns me, Lise. I agree.
Yeah. You know,
I don't think we should mess with any tires for now. I mean, especially if we want to do it by the end of July.
You know, and there is enough Phragmites close to the parking lot without having to get into the area with the tires. And there are some in more upland areas. Also, in terms of the permitting, as I was reading some of those schedules, Cheryl, it looks like a small enough project may not require a permit or may require a permit at a lesser cost. So if we're doing a pilot, we might be able to just do it if we keep it within those limits.
Oh,
But we are working in an area that's been contaminated, and I think we should be careful.
I agree.
Yeah, so I think that what we need to do is to consult with the state, let them know what we're doing.
Yeah, and get their
make sure
advice.
we're not getting ourselves into trouble by where we're working. And that could be a consultation that goes to both what would be necessary to get the tires out of there at some future date, as well as what would be safe for us to do this year.
I have just a couple of questions. If I'm not mistaken, if you apply for a permit by rule, it means that if you don't hear anything for 2 weeks, you have your permit.
Oh, I didn't read that. I didn't go that far into it.
I applied for a permit by rule to change a dock that we have here. And at the time, that was the framework. At one point, we have a cement block that sits on the shore right in front of our house, and it is immovable. But so we've hidden it with a wooden dock, which stays in the water year after year, and it is unique in that respect. And when I first wanted to rebuild the dock, I talked to the DEP, and 3 men descended upon me in days and inspected it and said, well, you better put a dock on this, which was kind of a little comical. And then after that, 8 years later, when the Hemlock dock disintegrated, I reapplied to do it a second time. And the permit by rule process at that time was nearly automatic. You applied, if you didn't hear anything in 2 weeks, you had your permit. So that was some years ago, and this isn't a contaminated site, but it may be easier than we think. And
I think we really do need to know a little bit of the history, because I'm sure Dave knows a lot about what's down there, what's at risk if we cut Phragmites, blah, blah.
yes, right. And it would also be worth knowing, if we do have a permit, how long the permit is good for.
And whether or not we would need to renew it every year, which would be expensive.
Because we have a time issue here, because all the literature that I read said, do it by the end of July.
Right.
Yeah, and I think they want you to do it by the end of July so you get it before it goes to seed.
Right.
Yeah.
It would seem to me if we could just do a tiny little test project that would inform us of what was needed, that would be very
Agree, because we're not doing the whole thing.
That's all we need to, that's an adequate effort this year.
Yeah. And maybe there's a way of doing that just on the edge of the parking lot, which would be in the nature of trimming weeds that would give us some of the information that we would need.
I think that's a good idea, but we do have to know what's known about the area.
Right.
Well, it was a dump site. That's why it became what it is. Donnie Millian had a mill there, and he started bringing in junk from his property on the other side of town. And that's what happened. That's why it got created.
Really?
Who was that?
Yeah, and the state has a lot of information on that.
Yeah.
And I know that when the library went in, we consulted with the state before we moved any earth. So I think it's just important that that be a part of this. especially for the work that is on the other side of the snowmobile trail where the tires are that are in the area that's being monitored.
Right, but there are also some tires just below the honor roll.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mike, you've been observing and listening to some of this. Do you have anything to add to what you've heard?
Stayed with us.
You're muted.
I've just figured that out. Good
Okay.
timing, Gary. No, I appreciate you letting me sit in, as it were, and because I've learned a heck of a lot about what you guys are concerned with. It sounds as if you've got, there's a bit of paperwork that you all have to pursue, right? And Dave, we're lucky. Dave's the person to pursue it through. He knows, I think, what's necessary in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So maybe what I'll do then is give Dave a call, talk to him about briefing the select board, see if he thinks it's a good idea, kind of run this pilot project idea by him, talk to him about contacting the state as well, and maybe even make a presentation to the select board at their meeting on Monday, their Zoom meeting on Monday.
Good.
See what their response is, and maybe we can get a go-ahead to explore, and if we don't run into problems with those explorations, be able to move forward with a pilot project.
We don't drop dead.
Well, we will one day anyway.
Who is making the presentation to the select board?
I could do that.
Thank you.
I could do that.
Thank you, Gary.
I've been reluctant to reach out to any volunteers until we had things in order.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I think that was smart. Just we really can't involve other community groups because we don't know what we're doing, and this is the COVID-19 era.
What is the date of the next select board meeting?
Monday.
I think it's Monday. So that way we could maybe get an okay and try to get something done by the end of July.
Okay, so that's the
Good.
So we've gone from all the plans of all the different people we were going to involve over the summer and the fall, doing all these things. And now we don't even know if just this core group of the people on this committee can go out and muck about hacking away at the Phragmites safely. It's just,
Well, we're
Wow.
gonna find out.
It's really set us back, but if we can do something this year, it's more likely that we'll be able to do something next year or the year after, depending on how they do with the vaccine.
Yeah.
so we just need our masks and our machetes and we're good.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good idea to alert the select board that we want to do a teeny tiny little bit along the area of the parking lot, which it used to be piled up with all of the floats and docks. Have they been removed?
Oh, yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, those are gone now. So
Good.
we have
You could
easy
get it.
access to that edge.
Okay.
Gary, should I send out what I sent to you on March 18th, which was that memo discussing some of the issues and also the information about the Phragmites and something from Scientific American and something from UConn?
Sure, I think that would be great. And
Okay.
So Lisa's going to be sending out something with respect to the mooring ordinance and a note from Dave Kinney. Were you talking about?
No, I was
No,
still
okay.
talking about
Okay.
the Phragmites. I think we should talk about the mooring thing.
Okay, good. That would be better.
No, I
think-
was definitely going to send out the Phragmites information that I sent you in March.
Great,
Okay.
good.
And then everything closed down, so we never went on with it.
You know, and rather than saying that we would just limit it to the edge of the parking lot, the way I would like to present it would be to say, we're going to talk to the state to see what's feasible and what makes sense. And if they say
Right.
there's no problem with doing a little more, we'd be able to do a little more.
Okay,
So we're gonna do our
Good.
due diligence before we move forward.
That's good.
That sounds good. And get permission from the DEP.
Mm-hmm.
all right.
So, Lise, do you want to bring us up to speed
Sure.
on the mooring
Well,
ordinance?
maybe Rich can help me too, because last year there was a mooring, a mooring ordinance was created by a committee that was headed by Jay Foster. And Rich is on it, I'm on it, and I'm not quite sure who else is on it at the moment, because Dorothy used to be, but Dorothy's not on it anymore, because she's moved away to Belfast, it seems. But in any case, we created a draft, and the draft basically, we looked at ordinances that other towns had done for mooring, and we, Paul Leeper was on the committee, and Justin Twitchell was also. And so we drafted something, and basically it was, moorings in front of people's shorefront property. Each shorefront property owner could have one mooring. And so basically it was moorings for people with shorefront property. And then most of the other town ordinances had designated areas where other people could, limited designated areas where other people could put moorings. But Lincolnville doesn't have a whole lot of public access. And the one public area on Norton Pond is very small and is pretty crowded, and I don't think would hold a number of moorings for enough people. So we sort of left that blank. And then a whole year has passed since that was sent. And then Dave Kinney recently sent out a draft that the town lawyer had done. And basically what she is suggesting is that there be, for the shorefront property owners, they have one mooring or two moorings or however many moorings in front of their shorefront property out to 100 feet. But between 100 feet and 200 feet would be the designated area. Anywhere on Norton Pond, on the Lincolnville part of McGuntacook, in Pitcher Pond, any of the ponds from 100 to 200 feet out, anybody could have a mooring, but they have to be 80 feet apart. So I thought that would be sort of awful, and that got circulated to the committee. And I suggested that we all meet to discuss it and express my concerns about it, because I said I didn't think that, given the fact that there are going to be so many more boats and many more people in the years to come, it's going to make for a very crowded lake. If you have 100 to 200 feet out, you have moorings every 80 feet.
Yes.
And none of the ordinances had anything like that we studied and looked at. There's no precedent for that. Even Camden isn't thinking about doing something like that. They think of specific areas where they will have, some mooring spots, but not enough to contend everybody. But
No, other than, I spoke to David about it, and it made sense to have our committee, the mooring committee, meet with the attorney and discuss the differences in our proposal and what the attorney's saying, as well as comparing the legalities that she brings up. The ordinance is similar to ours that have been passed in other towns in Maine. Apparently our chairperson, Jay, hasn't wanted to meet with the attorney yet. Brought up the costs involved with meeting with an attorney, and David replied to him, that's what the town does when it looks at ordinances. We have to meet with the attorney, and don't worry about the costs. But nothing's been organized yet. So
have you spoken to Jay?
I haven't spoken to Jay, no. I've just spoken with David.
I mean, I think it's very odd. I mean, frankly, I think, no ordinance is better than that ordinance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, how would you like to have a boat moored out to 100 feet from your shoreline?
Right. No, I agree. I think we should meet with the attorney like David thought.
So
So-
I don't know, maybe we need an intercessor.
Well, why don't you and I talk privately, Lisa, and figure out how to push this?
All
We
right, or Gary could talk to David and say, what's happening?
Yeah. Well,
But
David,
as far as I know, David's waiting on the committee.
that's right. And you and I and Jay are the only ones that had input, but I was waiting on Jay just to see how we would respond to David. Because
I
David,
think we might wait forever. He sent me a private email and said it wasn't what we wanted, it's what was legal. And then I also had an email from Dave Kinney, and he was citing some rule from the Department of Agriculture, which said a mooring could be anywhere. And I never even seen the damn thing. And why the Department of Agriculture was getting involved in where moorings were, I couldn't figure out. And I said, you know, we've been dealing with Title 38, Section 3. And, you know, no response from anybody.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Cheryl, go ahead.
Question. Who is the attorney representing that is providing this opinion about where the moorings can be?
You, the town of Lincolnville.
yeah, it's the Lincolnville attorney, the town attorney.
And who is that?
Kelly? Is his name Kelly?
It's a she.
A she, that's a new one.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's confusing right now because this is twice the attorney has said that having any restrictive ordinance, just protecting the waters in front of the shore landowners isn't legal. But that's why I want to have a meeting with the attorney, because I want to understand if that's ironclad, how are these other towns getting away with ordinances?
Yeah, and why is Title 38 saying what it says, which is that you can have moorings, but that and you can have more than one mooring in front of your property and let someone else use it, but provided they're able to walk over your property.
That's right. But it has an impact for sure on all our lakes and ponds in terms of
Well, it could kill
getting
them.
them developed by outsiders. So we'll be pushing this to get an answer.
Well, then maybe you and I should put our heads together, because I feel as though I've been sort of strong-minded, and maybe, you know, Jay thinks I'm too pig-headed.
Well, David responded.
Not possible.
David responded to him saying, let's, you know, don't worry about the cost for the attorney. We need to talk to the attorney. So I expected he'd agree, but I haven't heard back. So yeah,
I think you have to call him, Rich, because I think I've already, he thinks I'm a troublemaker. And we haven't heard boo from Paul Leeper or Justin.
Right. I'll call David tomorrow and try to clarify some things about Jay. And see.
Okay, and maybe I'll call Paul Leeper and find out what he thinks.
That's fine. We don't need to hold the committee up anymore, our committee.
Well, it's very
No.
upsetting.
So you can report back at the next meeting as to the progress we make. It is a real conundrum because right now, the way things stand, anybody can put a float or a mooring on a great pond, on any pond that's greater than 10 acres, so long as it's not more than 200 feet out.
I haven't seen that written anywhere except in the proposed Lincolnville ordinance. Title 38 does not say that.
So I think that that's the reason why Camden is so interested in having an ordinance, so that they can regulate that in some way, because otherwise people are within their rights to set a mooring. There is the issue of access to the mooring, but if people can get in through a boat launch area or something like that, they would be
unimproved land, and they can swim out.
Right?
But Gary, where does it say that anybody can put up a mooring? I haven't yet to see an ordinance that says that, except this thing from the Department of Agriculture that Dave Kinney was circulating around. that said a mooring could be anywhere.
So I'll take a
That's
look
the way
at
it
that,
is
and I'll
on McGonagall.
I'll get back to you separately on that. But that was my understanding of the issue and why an ordinance is necessary if you want to regulate it, because otherwise people can put a float out, they
That's
can
right.
put a mooring out for a boat, and if they can reach it from any public area, that would be fine. So they could have a float, you know, and the float could be at a nice spot, 200 feet from shore, or anywhere.
Right in front of
off
your
any of
house.
the lakes, and they could put in their boat at a boat launch, and go to it and use it the way it's laid out. And it seems to me that what the lawyer is saying is that's the law, and it really can't be restricted much. And I guess that's why the conversation needs to take place, as you're suggesting, with
That's
the lawyer, and probably the sooner the better, so we can understand what the constraints are and what the legal risks are to do what some of the other towns have done. Everything is a matter of legal risk, not out and out legality usually.
Well, that's why we need that meeting, I believe. But it took a year and a half to even get a response from the attorney about our ordinance.
Really.
Proposed one. Yeah. It's been extremely frustrating. Okay. We'll report back.
Thank you all. This has been great.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you all
Thanks,
again.
everybody.
Let's talk about our next meeting. Should we do it the fourth Tuesday again and see if Dave can set up a Zoom meeting for us?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
will that be time enough to then organize our pilot project at that meeting so we can actually do something before the end of July?
So what date in July would that be?
That's the 20th.
The 20th?
That's
No, I'm
plenty
sorry.
of time.
No, I'm sorry. 21st.
The 21st? Okay, that would
Yeah.
be, so it's about as early as it can be in July. So I think that would work. I think that would work. We
Yeah.
could still get something together by the end of July or early
Yeah.
August at the latest. I think that's,
I can't look at the calendar and look at the computer. That's when, is it 21st or 24th?
Tuesday, the 21st
21st, okay.
is the
so
third
it doesn't
Tuesday.
get any earlier.
Gary, does that mean we won't be in there whacking away at the Phragmites before then, before we meet again?
I think that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's correct.
Well, all the notes said
Because
by
we're
the
gonna
end
have
of
to do the
July is best.
consultations with the state, and I think there's too many things that would need to happen to do it right.
Okay,
Thank you all. Good to
thanks,
see you.
Gary.
Bye.
I want to
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
thank you very much.
Good night.
Good to see you all.
Oh, and
Sure.
actually, Gary, I wanted to say one thing.
Yes,
To Richard and Lise regarding the mooring subcommittee.
Yes.
You might, if you were to contact the Maine Municipal Association, you might get some answers about why our town attorney is suggesting what she's suggesting. You might get a little background. And
Okay.
I mean, the town's a member of the Maine Municipal Association.
Right.
Lakes and Ponds Committee is a entity of Lincolnville, as it were. So there's no reason you can't pick up the phone and give them a call. They're very forthcoming. I use when I was on the planning board, we often ask them questions. So you might get a little background on that.
Okay. That's helpful.
You contact
Mike,
them.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Rick, Mike.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks for letting me sit in.
Sure. All the best.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Good night.
Have a happy 4th.
Yes, same to
yes,
you.
to everybody.
Yeah, you too.
Be safe and don't make any noise.
I agree.
How do I? Hup. Bye. I think I'm done. Oops. That button. Oh, that's what I want.